Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Medfield College Film Society. I am Jeff Crawford, and I am joined by my esteemed society members with Mr. President Robert McSwain. Starting off, Robert, how are you doing?
I'm great. I have my detonator handy. I'm ready to raise some buildings and get this underway.
Man, if only. I wish I could take out some buildings, some classic architecture. Get it out of here. We're going to go down to where there is, not too much classic architecture, the wilds of Central Florida. Mr. Michael Crawford, how's it going?
I'm cracking into a boiled lobster, as they say. Enjoying that down here. Back in the swamp. You guys are reporting cold temperatures and snow, and I'm stuck with 80 degrees. So it's brutal, man.
Watch out for those lobsters. They can be used as weapons for sure.
So I hear.
Our mountainous correspondent, Mr. Andy Brown. How's it going up there?
What that? Timely.
I've been watching the Super Bowl, like old Super Bowl commercials. So
There you go.
Getting ready. Yeah. But I'm doing great. Hope you guys are.
So if you've listened to our last episode, you know what we're doing. But if you haven't, you should go back and listen to the last episode. But we are in the midst of a 4-part Herbie series. What is next in that lineage, Michael?
Oh, wow. We are hitting the road again to the streets of San Francisco with the 1974 Disney classic Herbie Rides Again. Directed by Robert Stevenson, produced by Bill Walsh, also written by Bill Walsh, based on a story by Gordon Buford. Both of those men Disney legends, starring the First Lady of the American Theater, Helen Hayes, as Mrs. Steinmetz, Ken Berry, TV's Ken Berry, as Willoughby Whitfield, Stefanie Powers, boat-nicking her way to our hearts as Nicole Harris, Keenan Wynn, the great Keenan Wynn as Alonzo Hawk, and John McIntyre as Mr. Judson, who got billing over Keenan, and I'm not sure why.
Wow.
Not here, buddy.
Yeah,
not here.
No way.
Also featuring a stellar score by George Bruns.
Always great George Bruns, the workhorse of the Disney studio at this time. As we have said in previous episodes, Michael, this was a frequent watch in our household. I don't know why, but yes, it was.
Well, it was the rules of childhood where whatever you manage to tape off of TV becomes the thing you watch over and over again. So we watched this one way more than the original Love Bug. This one and Monte Carlo both watched more than the original. And I hadn't seen this in a long time. And man, it came flooding back hard, every frame of it.
That is right. That is exactly right.
I came into it almost cold. Like I watched it as a kid, and I had very vague memory of it. So,
what a treat for you. How lucky. I wish I could step into your
my
shoes.
memory and start over again.
Step in see it again for the first time.
I was really into Hot Wheels, and I remember sitting with a Volkswagen Hot Wheels and watching this movie, Matchbox Car.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Be the Red Knight, get a car to be the Red Knight. Anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we would. Forgot about that. Yeah, good times. The Red Knight.
So, Michael, this movie has a lot of the same production team, but somebody's missing. I wonder what's up with that.
I have never been able to find a reason why Dean Jones was not in this. Obviously, it suffered as a kid. Obviously, I like Monte Carlo better because Dean Jones is in it. And Dean Jones not in this was always a huge letdown. We don't get the continuing tales of Dean Jones and Herbie. I don't know. He was still doing stuff for Disney at this point. He must have been busy with Cat from Outer Space was Kim Berry. He must have been busy with $1 Million Ducks or something. So I don't know, but yes, sorely missed.
Hard to say. And we know, Andy, you have not seen any of the Herbie movies.
That's correct.
First time through this one.
Yep.
What, give us a take on this.
Well, kind of like what you guys have already said. I was expecting a different sequel, and I think when we get into it, you'll kind of can tell that by my write up of Act One. But it was okay. I take it back. It wasn't very good, but it wasn't. But it wasn't terrible. It just wasn't very good.
Well, once again, we were back channeling Jeff and I and speculating about your take on.
I was pretty sure I could predict.
Well, yeah, it wasn't real. Yeah, it was pretty easily predictable as the plot unraveled. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, I mean, it was nowhere near as good as the first one. This is definitely one of those cases where the sequel does not live up to the original.
Yeah. I mean, I always thought the first one feels like a real movie, if that makes any sense. I'm like, okay, that's a real movie. And this one is very much of the sort of the factory of the Disney factory and a lot of just like gags strung together kind of.
It was a cash grab, it felt like.
Very Gus kind of moments here and there. So.
Yeah, a lot of big sort of set piece gags. But I will have to say that it was hard for me, taking notes, watching this, not to like quote literally every line that Alonzo Hawk says.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of lines in this movie that I didn't realize till I was rewatching it. Things that I quote to this day.
Yes.
That I had totally forgotten were from this because of like bizarre lines. That was a lot of fun.
Very imprinted on our DNA. I don't know why, but
it reminds me of growing up and discovering the Beatles and then realizing, they did that song. So Alonzo Hawk and the Beatles. So that's, there's a connection there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shall we get into this movie?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's get into the world of Herbie Rides Again. Andy, you're going to start us off. Take us there.
It's DBBV time, folks. That's right. Distributed by Buena Vista. And hark, what's that sound? Oh, it's that groovy shagadelic Herbie theme song in Walt Disney's Herbie Rides Again, the follow-up sequel to the Smash family favorite movie, The Love Bug. Now, it's been a few years since we last saw our beloved characters, and I know we're all just dying to find out what Jim, Carol, and Tennessee have been up to, and of course, Herbie. But so when we last saw Jim and Carol, they had just gotten married. And so based off of that and the timing of when this movie came out, it would make sense for this sequel to have something to do with them. Probably having kids or the like, right?
Yeah, assume so.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. The movie's going to start out with Carol being pregnant and about to give birth while Jim and Herbie are speeding her to the hospital. And then Tennessee is in the back seat trying to keep Carol calm by spouting Tibetan proverbs. That would make a lot of sense, right? Right?
Yeah, I think so.
You've sold me, man.
Keep going, Andy. I think you got.
Where were you in 1973?
Let's just go with Andy's story.
Unfortunately, that isn't the case. And like my expectations, the movie literally opens with things crashing down to earth. The first 2.5 minutes are just shots of buildings being torn down as a giddy but familiar old man watches on from the back seat of his chauffeured car. And even at time, he pushes the detonator himself. But that's not just some ordinary eccentric rich old white man. It's Alonzo Hawk. That's right. The Alonzo Hawk. That Alonzo Hawk from The Absent-Minded Professor. I'll tell you, I cannot state how happy I was. I had no idea it was in this movie. So I could not say how happy I was when I saw him. And I was like, oh, I love this guy.
Yeah, so good.
It was so
It's one of the best opening title sequences I can think of all time.
Well, Andy points out the symbolism here of it all crashing down.
Instead of a racing montage from the first one, we get a wrecking ball montage.
Yeah. Right. So, like I said, Alonzo Hawk's in this movie. What in the world is he doing in this movie? Well, I'll tell you what. He's building shopping centers. That's what he's doing. And boy, does he want those old buildings gone. He makes the slice across the neck motion as one building after another collapses, making room for yet another Hawk shopping center. But I guess all that sitting and watching buildings collapse wore Alonzo out, because the very next shot is him in a flowery shirt being chauffeured around Rome.
Well,
taking.
I will say this
Yeah.
before we get to Rome. I could watch probably 10 minutes of just Hawk blowing up buildings, like on YouTube. Like I think, like if
put
there
on
was
a
a
loop.
YouTube channel of Alonzo Hawk pushing the plunger on buildings, I'd be there.
I'm like giggling weirdly.
Yes, and enjoying it.
Some of these buildings are huge. I mean,
Yes.
massive. It's just kind of amazing to watch.
I was hoping our
dude.
historian could clue us, because there's one like big, like white, like ornate, like hotel or something, towering hotel that goes down. Like, I mean,
Yeah, I wondered what
was
all
like,
those
maybe he'll-
were. I mean,
maybe he'll
obviously
know.
it's stock footage, but yeah, I don't know any of them. But there were some really nice buildings in there.
and then you know,
Some nice stock footage too.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
there's one. I think there was like a building like sandwiched like maybe 4 feet on either side, and they took it down, leaving the other two standing. I mean, it's impressive. It's always impressive, but maybe not to be blowing up San Francisco. They don't seem to be too. They're not real groovy about that out there. But
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So Hawk's now he's in Rome, and he's being chauffeured around, and he's taking in the sights when he suddenly sees the Roman Colosseum, and shocks his Italian driver by exclaiming that it would be a perfect site for one of his shopping centers.
I love his shirt in this. It's a
Yes.
nice shirt.
Yeah. It's like a Hawaiian shirt, kind of.
did anyone catch who the cab driver was?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Well, I recognized him. Vito Scotti,
Yes.
and I recognized him from The Godfather. That's where it jumped out. So he was the baker.
Really?
Yeah, he was the baker that did a scene with Brando. His future son-in-law was being deported, and he asked the Godfather to kick open a few doors for him, and in exchange, he baked the wedding cake for the wedding ceremony.
Well, that's funny, because where I was going with it is he's the Who Took the Chicken guy from a Herbie movie that's 2 movies away.
Stay tuned.
So
Stay
stay
tuned.
tuned for more Vito Scotti. And I love that in the same decade he does Godfather and Who Took My Chicken.
I mean, that has to be his star turn, though. Not The Godfather, but Who Took My Chicken, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't. He also was in the Andy Griffith Show. Andy, I don't know if you saw that. If you recognized him.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't.
I was looking at his
did not.
list, and I mean, he's done a ton of work. I mean, just
Yeah, he's in
he's in
everything.
everything, and of course, it was just a bit part in the Andy Griffith Show.
There's also a line here that's one of those lines that
Yes.
I always quote without knowing why, which is when he's talking about the Coliseum. He says, "Plenty parking, too," which is a comment I've made.
Said that a
many
lot.
times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, that's it for this. It's just,
That's he just
All
wants
right.
to blow up.
It was
That's where
just
I'm
in
going.
there for that gag. That's it.
So, yeah. So, since Hawk is in Italy, he's probably going to go blow up the Leaning Tower of Pisa next, right?
Yeah.
But what? Oh, come on, movie. Why are we back in San Francisco? What happened to the Hawk versus the Italian storyline?
so weird.
Yeah, it was.
Cutting room floor, man. There was a whole act about Hawk in Italy, but it got taken away.
That'd have been great. Yeah, so yeah, we're back in San Francisco, which is the headquarters of the Alonzo Hawk Wrecking and Building Corporation. And they are revealing to the public their latest project, the world's tallest office building, Hawk Plaza, which definitely has a Tony Stark / Stark Tower vibe to it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Man, I think about this building a lot.
Yeah, it definitely has.
Well, it's 130 stories of man-made glory.
It's etched in my mind somehow. I don't know why.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be some sort of tie into my own personal struggles looking at that tower.
What?
I'm referring to a certain tower in New York City that bears the name of its builder.
Oh yeah, well, of course. Yeah, that's right. It's the beginning of many comparisons there.
All right, well, Hawk's giving a heartwarming speech, which could mislead one to think that he's not as cold of a person as he used to be, but then suddenly blast the freeloaders for coming and drinking all of his booze. Then Hawk takes a phone call from his builder, who asks when Hawk wants them to start digging and building his new masterpiece office building. But then suddenly Hawk realizes that there's still a single building standing in the way of his dream structure. But it's not just any building, but it is a firehouse building. But is it possible that it's the same as the one that Jim and Tennessee lived in? I don't know. We'll have to find out.
I love the gag where they pull the model of the skyscraper up, and there's a model of the firehouse right underneath.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's
That's great.
scaled, detailed model.
I really hope both of those models are in the archive somewhere. I really hope they are.
I don't
That
mean to
would be
poke a hole in
amazing.
the plot here, but that tower is not going to fit on that lot the way they had it. I mean,
Also, it's a tiny, tiny thing. If it's as big as the firehouse, it's one tower. It's about the same size. The other thing I'd like to mention before we move on is the guy who is doing like the voiceover of the pitch is just. It's some of my favorite. Like, how did it happen, you ask? And then he like asks the people to come down to the lobby where a scroll awaits you.
Where a scroll awaits you. Also, the line about bringing a tear to Hawk's flinty old eye is another one that I still quote.
So Hawk lashes out at his team of lawyers who say that they couldn't get old lady Steinmetz to sign the final papers because she doesn't trust them. And Alonzo agrees and decides he needs someone else to talk to her. Someone so innocent and helpful and dumb that anybody would trust them. And cut to Willoughby Whitfield, played by TV's Ken Berry, who's Hawk's nephew and is sitting in the waiting room waiting to meet with his uncle. We find out that Willoughby is Hawk's sister's kid who just finished law school back east. And when Alonzo hears the news about his nephew, he immediately knows he has found his man and wants to see him right away. So this is Ken Berry. So we're going, you had already mentioned Andy Griffith Show. We got Ken Berry, who is a tie-in with the Mayberry RFD. But that's not the only Andy Griffith Show connection after the ones that you already mentioned, Robert. One of the lawyers is played by Dan Tobin, he was the second lawyer, the second main guy lawyer. And Dan Tobin was Gentleman Dan Caldwell in the Andy Griffith Show episode Andy and the Gentleman Crook, whose famous saying was, "On my word as a gentleman." You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
These lawyers crack me up. They're all wearing white carnations. It just seems like the sleaze is even...
Classy
How
sleeve.
about Hawk's office? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Oh, man.
I mean,
Just
It's got those like Egyptian
A+.
statues.
and then it's
set
like there's a
design.
whole big open area. Like there's like a 40 by 40 foot
It's like a gym. Yeah.
gymnasium like size. There's nothing in it. It's just a big open space in front of his desk.
The gold H door handles. I thought his desk was way too small for that giant room. It's like kind of a normal desk.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he'd have a bigger desk for
If you're gonna
sure.
go all
it's not
out, just
centered.
go all out. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
centered. Ah,
I do like the H door handles. That's a nice
Yeah,
touch.
it's-
A real Hawk touch, as he would say.
yeah, Robert. To your point, this is all starting to ring a little bit too familiar to the modern day.
Yeah, I put my notes here. The
certain
irony
business.
here is just dripping from the.
I never even made that connection. That's good. Yeah.
Just
I
a little
see it
bit.
now.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, so Hawk invites in the nervous Willoughby, who presents him with the Furs Law College Humanitarian of the Year award.
I laughed at this Furs Law College, which I Googled and couldn't find anything.
That's a shame.
It's not a real thing, obviously. But it's played like it should be a joke, but I don't get it.
And Willoughby really admires his uncle because turns out Hawk's sister idolized him and raised her son, telling him how wonderful and great her brother was, and he would often send them California fruit at Christmas. Recognizing his opportunity, Alonzo hires and convinces Willoughby to go and persuade Mrs. Steinmetz to sign the building over to him, which he enthusiastically agrees to. And you cut to the firehouse, because yes, indeed, it is the same firehouse that we saw in The Love Bug, overlooking the San Francisco Bay, but it's now surrounded by building rubble. But we do see that familiar VW Bug sitting out front, so wonder who that could be.
I have to interrupt here. I'm sorry. Before we go further, there are a couple.
I know what you're gonna say.
I mean, there are a couple of things from the monologue that Hawk gives to Willoughby at his. First, he loves that he's somebody who knows how to use juice properly.
Yes.
Which I like. He also tells the story of Mrs. Steinmetz and says that she rolls drunks and teaches small children to steal, which was the first I had ever heard the phrase "rolling drunks." So that was fun.
This monologue is priceless.
And when he's talking about the building and all the features,
The building for helpless old people.
Helpless old people.
for helpless old people,
Towers.
yeah, that has everything. Has the Rudolph Valentino Sesshu Hayakawa movie.
Yes.
Now, Sesshu Hayakawa, who was in Swiss Family Robinson, weirdly enough. But as a kid, I knew who Rudolph Valentino was, but I had no idea what Sesshu Hayakawa was. So I was always super bewildered by that line. And Jeff and I would say it all the time.
Yes, we would. Yes, we would.
Not knowing
what it
even
meant.
remotely what it meant. And I also like the machines on each hall that will give you everything from pizza to hot chili.
Man, that's...
Old ladies love pizza and hot chili.
And they would also have a hobby center. I mean, it's kind of selling me on it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so there. Yeah, for real. Oh, the Rudolph Valentino Sesshu Hayakawa movie.
So yeah, we're back at the firehouse, and Willoughby arrives via taxi, and when he gets out, he says, "Isn't it breathtaking?" in admiration of his uncle's new Hawk Plaza building site, just as the cab driver says, "Yeah, that guy Hawk ought to be hung," and drives off.
That's pretty good.
That's a good line. Willoughby dismisses the negative talk and rings the door buzzer of the building, and the sweet old lady, Mrs. Steinmetz, answers the door. And Willoughby introduces himself, saying he'd like to discuss some business with her, but unfortunately, the Volkswagen Beetle that was sitting out in front has now rolled onto his toes. Now that sounds like something Herbie would do, and you know what? It is Herbie.
Hey, well, at least we got somebody back.
Yeah. Mrs. Steinmetz scolds Herbie, saying he's always trying to protect her, and so she invites Willoughby in, and saying that she has to humor Herbie because he used to be a famous racing car, but his driver went off to Europe to drive foreign cars, and so now Herbie is a little sensitive.
Well, he ought to be.
Hate this backstory. Hate that backstory. Why would Jim Bell on Herbie? Herbie wins every race.
But you know what? After watching The Love Bug and seeing how ridiculous Jim can be, I kind of can believe it now. I used to be like, that's so unbelievable because Herbie wins every race. But we saw what happened to Jim.
Yeah.
Jim got some pretty stiff denial, and he clearly wants to, he lusts after European cars. So
Got a wandering eye. It's true.
But, I mean, come on. How are you going to do that to Herbie again? I'm just upset because, Jim, what's wrong with you?
So, yeah. Well, yeah. So, now they're finally starting to give us a little backstory and some information about Jim's whereabouts. And it's certainly better than other much higher paid screenwriters saying stuff like, somehow Palpatine returned.
The dead speak.
Mrs. Steinmetz goes on about the old firehouse when a sentient music box starts playing the tune, "Do Not Trust Him, Gentle Maiden."
Man, what a cool organ. That thing is great.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind one of those in my house.
Yeah, she says the music box is a friend of Herbie's, and so is Old 22, the cable car who sits out back.
Ding, ding.
I felt like Old 22 was right outside of Mr. Rogers' house. It's going to have that vibe of the
Yes.
soundstage with the Carolina Blue
The
wall.
AstroTurf.
Yeah, an AstroTurf. That's right.
I mean, it turns out Mrs. Steinmetz has a sentimental attachment to the firehouse because she got married there, and her late husband, Captain Steinmetz of the San Francisco Fire Department, one of the heroes of the Great Fire.
I kind of want to hang that portrait of the captain over my mantle myself.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I want that painting. I want that painting so bad.
It's so amazing.
I'm gonna stick with the Radigan one, but you all can have that one.
That should be above a fireplace somewhere on the park.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be an
restaurants.
Easter egg somewhere on one of the theme parks. You're right.
Well, Willoughby tells her that he was sent there by Mr. Hawk, and that changes Mrs. Steinmetz's demeanor, saying that Willoughby has such a nice face compared to those other ruffians Hawk usually sends around. And when Willoughby offers her a check, Mrs. Steinmetz says that she doesn't know anything about money because her nephew, Tennessee Steinmetz, is the one who takes care of her. And he used to live there but had to rush off to Tibet because his guru got sick. There you go.
That's pretty tidy. Pretty
Yeah.
tidy. You don't hear about gurus getting sick, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like they would heal themselves.
Yeah. Well, I guess while Tennessee was away, Mrs. Steinmetz cleaned up the place because it no longer looks like a bachelor pad, which I was kind of disappointed. Except for that organ. That organ was pretty sweet.
She doesn't have a blowtorch. Or Irish coffee.
Mrs. Steinmetz explains to Willoughby that Tennessee studies Oriental philosophy, and that's how he knows things have an inner life, like wind and rain and traffic lights and can openers and flowers and little cars. And that's how he and Herbie became such great friends. But Mrs. Steinmetz didn't have to study Oriental philosophy like her nephew did. She could talk to Herbie right off, which is also convenient. At this time, a Global Airlines shuttle van pulls up to the firehouse and drops off a beautiful younger lady, Nicole Harris,
Said that right.
played by Stefanie Powers, who appears to be a flight attendant. And what happens next is one of the best scenes in the movie.
Yeah, agreed.
As Nicole enters the firehouse, she hears Willoughby talking about Mr. Hawk and Mr. Hawk's offer, and Mrs. Steinmetz introduces the two. And Nicole says, "How do you do?" and instantly just hauls off and slugs Willoughby across the jaw, knocking him to the floor and prompting the music box to play some cheerful music.
Man,
classic.
Great. One of the all-time great intros of a Disney character, I think, we will ever see.
Cold cock.
And she sells it too, man. She clocks him good.
Well, yeah, because, while he's recovering, we find out that Nicole she's like a tough cookie because she is indeed a flight attendant and works for the airline. And just last week, she knocked out a hijacker with a bottle of California wine.
Seems like a
Timely.
Yeah.
Cali wine.
What a great backstory, man. That's awesome.
Back in the day, the hijacker gag was pure gold. That was a go-to.
Right, that's right.
Nicole is Mrs. Steinmetz's live-in caretaker, and she sends her on up to her room so that she can get rid of what she thinks is another one of Hawk's goons. But while trying to convince Nicole to talk some sense into Mrs. Steinmetz, Willoughby says that he thinks her goofy story about Herbie is a sure sign that Mrs. Steinmetz's mental state is coming apart.
Oh, not so fast, my friend.
Yeah, well, that prompts Nicole to take Willoughby for a spin in Herbie and to show him that it's not goofy at all. At first, Herbie behaves himself, much to Nicole's frustration, but he soon reveals his true self when Willoughby calls him unattractive by popping a wheelie and begins speeding through traffic until Willoughby apologizes. And once Herbie comes to a stop, Willoughby still doesn't believe the stunt was Herbie, and he thinks it was just Nicole playing a trick on him. Well, that's when Nicole offers to let him drive to prove that it wasn't her, and he ends up calling Herbie stupid-looking again, and which, once again, ruffles Herbie's feathers, sending him shooting down the road. And this time, Herbie is really mad because he drives them across the Golden Gate Bridge and down the Pacific Coast Highway to a chicken tournament jousting competition out in the middle of nowhere. That's right. I said chicken tournament jousting competition.
You mean Yee Chicken Tournament jousting competition?
Yeah, Yee Chicken Tournament. Was this a thing?
Surely not.
This is the equivalent of the drive-in scene in The Love Bug, for sure. This is excellent cinema here.
Yeah. So this jousting tournament, it's just a strange LARPing event where people dress up like medieval fair, but instead of jousting with horses, there's two drivers who drive straight at each other in a game of chicken to see who swerves first. Now, the undefeated champion of the tournament, who's the Red Knight.
You mean the Red Knight, which is how they pronounce his name every time.
Yeah, he makes quick work of another driver, Sir Lancelot. And as those tires squeal on dirt track, the announcer and the crowd cheer on. Man, yes, this Red Knight, that's one smug.
His driving style is incredible. It's like if you could drive smugly, he does.
So two things here.
He's just always kind of laughing.
The Red Knight, first of all, for me, was giving off a very John Cleese vibe. And
Yeah. I can see that.
it was played by Rob McCary, who played Judge Renletgo from Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's one episode, yeah.
Wow.
So I went and dug
Now-
him up and read a little bit about him. But there's a fan theory out there that it was supposed to be Thorndike driving.
Well, see, I get that. That was exactly what I thought when I saw it. I said, this has got to be a tie into Thorndike right here.
A doppelganger, yeah.
But
See, that would be amazing.
and then Lancelot, I looked him up. That's Hank Jones, who was in the TV movie Ringo, which I never knew there was a TV movie about the drummer Ringo from the Beatles.
Oh, yeah.
And he also was in the Shaggy DA. He played Herbie Hughes in the Mod Squad. He was in the $1 Million Duck, Barefoot Executive, the Pearl Harbor War epic Tora Tora Tora, Blackbeard's Ghost, and in one final performance before his acclaimed career ended, he was in The Cat from Outer Space. But also Ken Berry was also. But that's low hanging fruit to throw Ken Berry in The Cat from Outer Space.
No kidding. Wow. I also love that like all the people who work the fair are kind of like New Yorker types who are like thuggy New Yorker types in medieval clothes. And then the audience are all like mod 70s types holding like pre-printed chicken signs.
Yes.
That, and whenever a joust is over, they have the like canned chicken Foley from like Clucky or whatever her name is, the like the old Disney like it's incredible. Oh man, so good. I mean, the smugness of the Red Knight will never get old, and just gripping the wheel. It's so good.
So after seeing the Red Knight dispatch his opponent, Nicole recognizes Herbie's plan and gets out of the car, but Willoughby isn't so lucky. Herbie traps him and drives out onto the track to take on the Red Knight. The two vehicles race towards each other.
Now, wait a second. Before they do, Robert, did you notice there was a ceremonial throwing of the hanky by the lady fair?
I missed that.
Yeah. I thought about you.
So the two vehicles begin racing towards each other, and the Red Knight loses his nerve and swerves his car at the last second, making Herbie and Willoughby the tournament champions. And this makes the chicken run queen, as that's the role she is given on IMDb. She comes running out and congratulates them. And while kissing Willoughby, another judge separates them, played by the actor and comedian, an old comedian, Alan Carney. He's used to what's the mountains, the Catskills?
Yeah,
These old Catskills comedians. And he says to him, "You want the bread, man? $3." Which I love that line. That was a great line.
And she went, "My brave champion, you have won me."
She had like a really
Take me to
real
your
thick
kingdom.
accent, though. Yeah.
That would have been a good line for our the trailer that we did.
That's right.
Well, after all the craziness, Nicole rejoins Herbie and Willoughby, and he apologizes for not believing her and offers to take her to lunch, which she accepts. Well, down at Fisherman's Wharf, the two are about to share what looks like a lobster meal as Nicole
Lunch.
Hot date.
explains all the reasons why she can't stand Alonzo Hawk to Willoughby's disbelief. And when he reveals to her that Hawk is his uncle, she smacks him with a lobster, sending him flying out of the restaurant and into the bay water.
Deadly lobster, man. And it also has another that classic Foley we saw so much in the Love Bug with the
Yes.
Yeah. She's a violent lady.
She is. She's tough.
rage
cookie.
issues.
Well, later that evening, back at the firehouse in Mrs. Steinmetz's bedroom, Nicole has brought Mrs. Steinmetz some warm milk, and then she calls her grandma.
Yeah,
Which,
it's weird.
Did I miss something? Because she doesn't introduce her as her granddaughter earlier in the film, and now she calls her grandma.
I think it's just honorary. I thought that was weird too, because she gives a story like she got to know her because she was living in a building nearby that Hawk knocked down.
Right.
And that's how she got to know her, just as a nice old lady. So I thought that was weird.
Yeah, I kind of interpreted it as honorary kind of grandma figure.
Okay. Well, anyways, Nicole confesses to her that she kind of likes Willoughby and she regrets hitting him with a lobster, as you do. The two have a pleasant conversation about him, and Nicole says good night and exits the room, but she doesn't exit through a door, but rather a fireman's pole. And now I'm not a doctor, but a fireman's pole in an elderly woman's bedroom close to the door doesn't sound like a good idea.
I laughed out loud when because she doesn't they don't call it out. She just kind of does it. It goes down the fire pole, and I thought that was so funny.
There's a weird,
super random.
The set dresser put a doorstop. I noticed I just glanced and I saw one of those door stops to keep the door from swinging out over and hitting the fireman pole. And I was just like that.
Oh well, you gotta safety.
Safety first, right?
Thought of everything.
Well, Nicole says goodnight to Herbie as well, and who's having a dream flashback about being a famous racing car. And we're treated to a montage of racing scenes from the first movie.
Used to be a famous racing car.
A little bit of padding here.
Yeah, because there's absolutely no close-up shots of any of the main actors from the previous film. It's all from a distance, it was just very strange.
Getting their money's worth out of that footage.
So, cut to the next morning. Willoughby is applying makeup to his black eye due to the lobster being slapped across his face, and he's rehearsing his speech that he's going to give his uncle Alonzo, calling him out for the evil person that he really is. Before going to see Hawk, Willoughby drops by to see Mrs. Steinmetz, but catches a glimpse of Nicole as she leaves for work, and he hides underneath Herbie. And I thought it was a good thing Herbie didn't choose that moment to roll backwards on his own.
Yeah, so he was doing a little peeping there.
He was just a little uncomfortable.
Little peeping on them gams.
So after Nicole drives away, Mrs. Steinmetz is pleased to find Willoughby talking to Herbie, and Willoughby tells her that he's heading back home to Hawk City, Missouri.
I want to go to there so bad.
Yeah. Before he leaves, he tells Mrs. Steinmetz that he's going to go see his uncle and tell him exactly what he thinks of him. This makes Mrs. Steinmetz very happy, and she knows it would make Nicole feel that way too, and she pleads with him to stick around to tell her himself, but Willoughby politely declines and the two part ways. So meanwhile, back at Alonzo A. Hawk Wrecking and Building Corporation, Alonzo Hawk is trying to track down his nephew when he gets another phone call from his builder, Mr. Barnsdorf, who again asks him when he's going to want them to start work on the new building.
And can I just say, I want to hang with Barnsdorf. He seems super cool.
Yeah.
Getting a real, is like a sinister Michael Jordan vibe with his cigar. He's a cool customer, man.
He is.
Yeah, and Barnsdorf tells him that it's costing Hawk $80,000 a day for his men to sit around and play cards, which is no light chunk of change. Mm-mm. So while seething about Barnsdorf, Hawk's secretary tells him that she just found out that his nephew has checked out of his hotel, which sends Hawk into a rage. Willoughby arrives to hear his uncle's fit and decides not to confront him face-to-face after all, but decides to call him from the lobby instead. Smart move. Hawk takes the call and is pleased to hear from him, thinking Willoughby has good news, and says one of my favorite lines that Hawk said, which is, "That Hawk blood will tell in the end," which is just a great line.
I also love in his rant, he says he's a kindly, fun-loving fellow. Oh, that's good. A kindly, fun-loving fellow.
Willoughby tells his uncle that he's leaving town by faking that he's on a boat to Helsinki, and also tells him that he should really leave Mrs. Steinmetz alone. And that triggers Hawk. Yeah, so he says the Helsinki he makes all the noises.
Like the dog noises, yeah.
And he does an announcement or something.
In like a bad Swedish accent. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. This is a theme where he is really good at throwing his voice on the phone. This is not the last time we'll see it.
True.
Okay. So yeah, after he tells him that he's heading towards Helsinki, that triggers Hawk, and Hawk starts screaming loudly, which busts the glass in the telephone booth that Willoughby is calling from. Willoughby gently drops the phone and walks away as some people who just happen to be standing around nearby and who are clearly from the 70s look on in amazement. And this concludes Act 1.
He used to be a famous racing car. Used to be a famous racing car. Used to be a famous racing car.
So Hawk has blown a gasket and is on the couch stewing as his lawyers look on. He's decided to take matters into his own hands and harass Steinmetz and steal Herbie. Hawk hops in his Rolls Royce, but declares that he was a repo man at the age of 19 and was the best repo man this side of the Mississippi. His nickname was Hot Wire Hawk. His briefcase contains a pair of pliers, a screwdriver, and a piece of wire, aka a coat hanger.
I like he kept the briefcase.
Yes.
He's got like a kit. It's good.
Yeah.
So he proceeds to pull the lock on Herbie with the coat hanger and then hot wires Herbie from the rear. I mean, I would have thought he would have done it from the ignition switch, but I don't know a lot about hot wiring cars. Hot Wire Robert was not my name, but Hawk insults Herbie, calling him a one-cylinder hairdryer, to which Herbie decides to lock up and not move, causing a traffic jam, getting the attention of the cops. Hawk proceeds to insult the cops, and Herbie plays tug-of-war with a police cruiser who is trying to tow him out of the road.
There was a great scene when he locks up of all the cars getting hit sequentially. It really cracks me.
And everybody's like, Hawk is a little hair trigger in this.
Well, again, this is where him bristling against governmental control kind of seemed oddly relevant.
True.
The rope snaps, and we get the same gag we got in Absent-Minded Professor, where the cop cars collide and the bumpers jettison upwards, creating sort of a triangle.
Classic gag. Also, I love his line where the traffic commissioner shows up, and he says, "What are you doing in that monkey suit?" It's just like in a uniform. It's his dress uniform. I love that.
Also, the police radio when the cars are are wrecked. See the man.
Which we would say.
We would say that a lot,
And not understanding.
Yes. Still not understanding.
Herbie flees the scene and drives up to Hawk's office and tosses him out in front of the waiting lawyers.
How did he do that?
I guess he just made a hard right turn and swung his door open and Hawk went flying out.
Yeah, that's right.
At the airport, Nicole is heading to work, and Willoughby is in a very impressive disguise with long beard, trench coat, and hat, looking a lot like Doug Clifford from Creedence Clearwater Revival. Nicole sees through the disguise and hears Willoughby trashing Alonzo, and is quite smitten now by his new backbone he's showing. Back at the firehouse, Herbie and Miss Steinmetz head to the market. She decides to work on her shopping list while Herbie drives around town. Suddenly, a trio of Lincoln Continental Mark IVs pursue Herbie. Herbie escapes by driving up a dirt embankment. The Continentals give chase, and Herbie goes up a parking deck. And I beg the question that it looks like the Lincolns barely fit through that parking deck. I wonder how they shot that. Even if they overcranked it to make it go faster. I'm still amazed that those cars were fitting through there because it was real narrow.
They had like 100 of them.
Yeah.
They just went through.
And didn't Hawk give that? He gives a great line, doesn't he? Say something like, "Get that car, dead or alive."
Yeah. I also love that she's going to Vern's Market, which I don't know why that's funny to me, but it is so like weirdly specific. Like, we're going to Vern's Market.
Yeah. And she doesn't seem fazed by it at all.
Oh.
She's like, oh, Herbie, you knocked my glasses off.
Completely unfazed. We got some great George Bruns music here. It's like straight out of Robin Hood. Really good stuff.
At the top of the deck, Herbie jumps over 2 Volkswagen Bugs and over to the next parking deck. So, real quick here, let's check in with Mr. Andy Brown. How's this movie doing on the silly meter right now, Andy?
Oh, it's off the charts.
That was very Bond-ish with the jumping from a parking deck.
Grandma is frustrated with Herbie, who, as Andy pointed out, knocked her glasses off, and she's oblivious to the goings-on around her. Herbie ducks into the Sharon Palace Hotel, where he drives to the dining room. Herbie darts into the kitchen, and we get the good old-fashioned cake gag as a waiter turns around and creams Hawk's lawyers with a great Foley effect once again. Just the...
The maitre d' here, who gets in one line and barely even gets his profile on camera. Fritz Feld, again, the mouth-popping guy.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
That's right.
Yeah, I saw him in the credits and I had to look for him because I didn't notice him. He's like barely in the scene, but they brought him in just for that. So we'll be seeing him again in a couple of movies, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay, buckle up, folks, because back at Hawk's office, his administrative assistant sees Herbie off in the distance. We cut to Herbie riding up the guy wires of the Golden Gate Bridge, the same bridge Herbie tried to off himself on in the previous movie.
It's a real 180 for Herbie. It's
Yeah, like jumping off the building, for some reason I could like let go. But then when this happened, I was like, "Oh my
This
Lord.
was this was ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, even for this movie, it's ridiculous.
yeah.
Especially the guy, like if he was like trying to get away from something and it was like a desperate escape, okay, but him doing it and the guy's chasing him on foot up
So
the
ridiculous.
thing, like View to a Kill. It's ridiculous.
No.
So as Herbie drives up the wires, the lawyers are giving chase, and I asked the question, do you suppose these are billable hours for the lawyers, or do they give special ledger for risking their own lives chasing cars around town?
It better be, because let me tell you, it is windy on that bridge, and that would blow you right off. You would be dead. Oh, it makes me nervous just to think about. Not funny, man.
Grandma is still oblivious as Herbie chases the lawyers back down the bridge wire.
What's up with every time they see an old lady in a movie, they have to play harpsichord music?
Yes. Yes.
It's like, why?
It's so true.
Now I want to make a movie just to do that.
Oh, I just want a compilation, like a YouTube compilation old lady harpsichord thing. We've got to do that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Back at the firehouse, Herbie and Grandma return to see that Willoughby and Nicole are together, and Willoughby has decided to fight his uncle. Taking Grandma's advice, Herbie takes Nicole and Willoughby to the beach while Hawk's chauffeur follows.
Great chauffeur. He's so good.
Mm-hmm. Peak chauffeur.
Nicole and Willoughby talk on the beach while Herbie chases seagulls in the sand, which is pretty comical. I actually laughed pretty good at that. As they leave the beach, the road is blocked after Hawk's chauffeur pays off a local fisherman to park his RV or whatever that is in the middle of the road.
I love that it's like a typical like New Hampshire fisherman.
Right.
It's like,
Yes.
speak your mind, whatever.
Can't get there from here.
Yeah.
Does that stop Herbie?
No.
Oh, man.
What do you think there, Andy? Do you think that's going to stop Herbie?
I thought it was.
Is Herbie going to wait for the tow truck?
No.
I gotta say,
Nope.
this is coming up. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Herbie's escape.
Herbie jumps into the ocean off a dock and floats up the beach as sharks approach.
Well, what a shot though! Him going into the ocean. It's like they just
How'd
threw
they do
this
that?
Volkswagen just into the water. It makes me laugh every time I see it. It's just like launched into the water and just like submerges. Great, It's like,
How many
and
takes
cut.
they did of that?
Great.
We got it. Check the gate.
All right, back to one. Let's do it again.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a one take shot right there. I also love when they're underwater after that. There's like the wah wah theme, the wah wah guitar to convey underwaterness.
And what is a shark going to do to a car, by the way?
So that's I thought that out loud to myself. Why is a shark chasing a car? And then Nicole asked that various question: why would a shark be following a Volkswagen?
Oh, man.
This was before Jaws
creatures.
too, so they got ahead of the curve on that one.
Herbie catches a wave as Willoughby asks a passing surfer dude how to get to San Francisco.
Oh.
Okay, Andy, how about now?
Oh, God.
What's the silly meter looking like for you now?
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Blue screen surfing's always good.
That is so, I mean, whoa.
Splash.
Again, Disney's obsession with anything vaguely countercultural.
Yes.
Like the cartoonish surfer guy, like, oh, maybe I've had too
Hey,
much.
man, what's up, dude?
Whoa.
Back at the firehouse, Nicole and Willoughby arrive to find the firehouse empty and Grandma sitting in an empty building.
It's intense,
All
man.
of her stuff is gone.
Which
Dark.
How's that legal?
it's illegal. That
Yeah.
you can't do that. Call the
Exactly.
police.
No.
She operates outside of norms.
Yeah,
Like,
she operates outside
She
the
works
law.
outside of the law. It's true.
She's like the A team. She can't go to the police. They'll know.
She could have called them. They would have helped.
Surely the captain has some sort of pool that she was married to, right?
Yeah, right. She could
You
call
would
the
think
boys
so,
down at
yeah.
the precinct, the fire
My
department.
husband was a hero of the Great Fire.
At Hawk Van and Storage, Hawk's got a pretty deep portfolio here. He does. He wets his beak in a lot of different.
he had the storage place in Medfield, too.
He did.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys a question. So Herbie was a famous race car. Do you think Hawk knows that Herbie was like famous, or do you think it's just he doesn't recognize him at all?
Yeah.
He's
he
too
should.
busy with his dealings to
Yeah.
take in the news, you know?
He only races the ponies.
So at Hawk Van and Storage, Herbie takes matters into his own hands or wheels and smashes through the door. They're greeted with a recording of Hawk telling them to halt.
It cracks me up.
Great. Yeah, that's good.
So good.
Classic Hawk there. That's yeah. Hawk Security Service, another enterprise, shows up right as they locate their things stored on old number 22.
Man, there's kind of great security cars. They're like pukey yellow and red, old giant
Yes.
boats. Great.
While Grandma stalls, Herbie sneaks off and dumps a bunch of furniture on top of the cops to cut off Grandma and her gang.
Herbie's trashing other people's stuff, man.
Yeah,
Herbie
it's
goes-
their fault for-
Somebody else's old 97 or whatever it is.
They don't care. Herbie don't care. There's some interesting like Herbie miniature shots going up these
Yes,
levels.
I caught that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like scaled down models. Yeah, like
There is a pretty crappy miniature, if you ask me. I thought it was not very
it's
well
pretty
done.
obvious. Yeah.
I liked it because I just wanted one.
I want a miniature Herbie.
Yeah.
They escape on old number 22 through the streets of San Francisco.
Oh boy.
Here we go, folks. A drunk cowboy or businessman sleeping one off on the streets hears the
Yeah,
commotion
this is great.
and decides to hitch a ride. Grandma politely ignores the gentleman as she knits.
So you've got the double vision too, going into a single vision when he spots the trolley.
Always good. Yeah.
Yes.
He's had too much sheep dip.
Sheep dip. They call liquor in this town. That's what he said. Sheep dip.
All right, I need to adopt that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, too much sheep dip.
I was doing fine until I got into that sheep dip. That's what you say, Robert. Man.
You know that the drunk cowboy, that actor, he played in what was the movie? I recognize him.
I recognize him for something too. I didn't.
He's
I
in a
didn't
lot
know
of
about-
Western stuff for sure.
Turner and Hooch. He is the old guy that gets killed. That's Turner's friend.
Oh yes, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's who it was. Yeah. Anyways.
Hawk, sporting a pretty dope smoking jacket,
Oh yes, I want that jacket.
has declared victory and ensures his crew they can start digging tomorrow. He then is informed that they got their things out of the storage building and are on the run again. As they get to the crest of the hill, with Herbie pushing old number 22, Hawk and his security team arrive, and Herbie takes off through the streets of San Francisco, crashing Hawk's goons into a pretzel stand.
Yeah. I love why a pretzel stand. That's so weird.
Why not?
Also, my question was, where is everyone else in San Francisco? Because there's a shot of like Hawk and like 20 guys all coming down the street, and like it's them in the streetcar and no one else. Everybody's like cleared the streets for them.
Always, as a kid, I thought that shot was so ominous, though. It's like
Yeah.
such a far shot, and then they like zoom in on all the cars. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, it's spooky.
Number 22 starts to roll down the other side of the hill while Grandma and the rancher chat. As things get very awkward between the two, Herbie and company chase after them, but not before they interrupt a stuffy party with a cellist performs.
It's a great gag.
Because
Yeah.
why not?
Going through stuffy backyard events never gets old.
That's right.
I mean, any movie
Yeah.
that does that, it's good times.
The old man at that stuffy party event. Do you guys, anybody recognize
Oh,
him?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Judd Fletcher from Andy Griffith Show, played by the actor Burt. Was it Burt Merston, something like that?
Oh, I didn't even know his real name. But yeah, he's like instantly recognizable.
And we got that band organ going nuts in the old 22.
Yeah,
Cranking away the whole
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
As number 22 heads for the bay, Herbie pulls up next to them as Willoughby jumps off Herbie onto the streetcar, applying the brake just in time.
Nice shot of the sparks flying off of it when it's braking, and it kind of almost goes into the bay.
Again, the oblivious gag was played as Grandma and the rancher have no idea what just transpired.
Got to get Jeff Bridges to play him in the reboot.
Yes.
yeah.
She is so weird throughout this whole scene because she's knitting and like kind of engaging with him, but mostly not, and mostly kind of like ignoring him. It's really weird.
Yeah, she played it kind of strange there because she's kind of like smirks and sort of, oh, interesting, great, shut up, kind of, I really don't care. But then she starts like really getting into it, and he's like grabbing her thigh, and it's awkward. Like I was watching it going, this is getting weird. But and then in the background is the painting of her late husband.
Right.
You take that with you everywhere.
That'd been great if the painting had like eyes that were just like bugging out looking at the guy.
Yeah, why not at this point?
And then they close when it's getting close to the bay, going into the
That's
bay.
right.
They're like, closed.
The old Khrushchev bye-bye birdie gag.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next morning, Grandma decides she's going to take matters into her own hands. And after Nicole heads to work, she hops in Herbie, takes off to settle the score with Hawk. And that wraps up Act number 2.
So you think it's been silly so far?
You are not ready.
Let us finish this thing. We cut to Hawk's office as he's getting a back massage by his assistant, who of course is named Millicent, which I thought was the perfect name for her.
So good. Millicent has like a weird Bond girl vibe for me.
Yes, totally.
There's something creepy going on between them.
Well, I'd say so. She
Yeah.
definitely, goes all in on the evil vibe,
Yeah.
We have a whole new set of lawyers now too. He's canned the last group of lawyers and hired a whole new group now.
That's right. They come in and they say that he can't tear down the Steinmetz house as he doesn't have the necessary permits or own the land, which is probably more important.
Yeah.
He kicks them out. He says all his lawyers let him down. Robert, does this remind you of anything? Anything? Okay.
Nothing at all. I find no connection at all
Me
to
neither.
everyday life.
But not to worry. He says he's like a finely tuned violin. He says all he needs is some peace and quiet. And just as he says that, a window cleaner interrupts his reverie. So we got the window washer. He's on a big old gurney, kind of going around.
And it's one of those guys that's like in every one of these movies.
It is one of those guys. Yeah. Oh, and, Hawk is doing his thing. And so Miss Steinmetz sees the platform for the washer. And so naturally, when it comes down, she drives Herbie onto the platform, takes it up to the 23rd floor, just like that. Pretty easy.
God, this gave me the willies just watching this.
Yeah, him hanging from it like legit made me uneasy.
Him jumping on the platform as it's going up. That was, they timed that perfectly.
Yeah, so Willoughby sees her going onto the platform, jumps onto the platform, yelling for help. She can't hear him because she's listening to some soothing music. Eventually she hears, and she says she'll let the platform down only if Willoughby will promise to let her in to see Hawk.
Yes.
Like, what in the world is wrong with this lady?
She is a stone cold killer, man.
Yes.
She is.
She's got all she cares about is getting Hawk. So what if people die?
I mean, this dude is hanging.
The ends justify the means.
Hanging by
Yeah,
his bare hands, like 20 stories above the ground.
It's insane. Insane.
I'll pull you up only if you let me go get Hawk.
I will point out, as a kid, I was mesmerized by this window washing machine when it's in operation.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
foam and the mechanized washers and everything is pretty good. Also, I will say, point of order, Hawk's office wouldn't have windows that open. I mean, come on. That's
probably
perilous, but I mean, we're suspending disbelief.
Plot hole here.
In the meantime, Hawk has called a rogue wrecker to wreck the firehouse without a permit. Now, this guy is perfectly cast.
Yes. And he has an incredible, unbelievable connection to Disney. This is, because I didn't recognize him visually, but I saw his name in the credits and looked up who it was. This is Chuck McCann, who was a character actor and voiceover actor who was everywhere, but he was the voice of Dreamfinder in Journey to Imagination.
That is wild.
Really playing against type here.
Yes.
You wouldn't believe it was
Completely
the same
different.
guy. He also did the voices of a bunch of the Beagle Boys for DuckTales. Much more in style than this.
And didn't he do Launchpad as well?
I'm
right?
not sure about that, maybe.
I think so. He is just great in this. He's kind of got like the flatly cut long hair.
Yeah, he's got that real 70s look. I don't even know what you call that look, but
So Hawk is boasting about getting somebody to wreck down the firehouse. This time, Steinmetz and Willoughby pull up and overhear. Well, Miss Steinmetz hears this and she gets angry, hits the soap for the window washer directly into Hawk's office. As Michael mentioned, the windows are wide open.
it would be breezy, I think. I also love that the thing is, it's a very Batman gag with the window cleaning thing being labeled Alonzo Hawk Window Clean System.
Yes, with a K.
Yeah, window clean with a K. Yeah.
So this leads to absolute mayhem, as you would assume. Herbie chasing around Hawk in a sea of soap in this giant office with wacky George Bruns music. Again, a la Robin Hood. Wacky sound effects, statues dropping.
I wish there
Steinmetz.
was like film of the recording sessions for the Alonzo Hawk like ADR sound effects.
Yes,
Oh,
Jeff, I was
oh,
yes.
little boogity adjacent.
Yo, very boogity
right.
adjacent. Yeah. Right up that tree for sure.
Oh man! So Mrs. Steinmetz's reasoning with Herbie. Eventually, Hawk floats out the floor and runs down the hall. I love the scene of the doors opening and him just like floating on the
It's
thing.
so good. Yeah.
And for some reason, he decides to leave the building for a ledge running around the building. Well, it seems like a natural first stop.
This movie, I do not like heights, and this movie is unfavorable to that.
They play with that a
I'm
lot.
Right there with you, Michael. I'm telling you, it gave me the
Yeah, I
all-
mean, it's, I don't have a major issue with heights, but yeah, this made me a little queasy for some reason watching that. You know, especially when he got to the edge and was about to fall over.
Oh,
It
yeah.
made my-
and just watching the car driving around. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, there's no stopping Herbie. He chases him out on the ledge. Situation is getting out of control until Mrs. Steinmetz pushes the only button she knows to stop Herbie, which is to threaten to send him to a used car lot. Again, killer. Stone cold killer, Miss Steinmetz.
Well, and Wilby has to like talk her into keeping him from killing Mr. Hawk. Like
Right.
he has to like lean on her to. She's finally like, oh, all right.
And then, she's just all of a sudden back to her kind of vegetative state, just saying, oh, it's just a great morning. Calmly heading home to get in touch with the Lutzgarden, the rogue wrecker, that's again, the name, the casting, all of it. Lutzgarden. So back at the firehouse, Willoughby calls Lutzgarden as Hawk, again, throwing his voice.
It's so dumb.
Tells him that wrecking the firehouse is off, but could he please change the address and wreck another house instead, which is actually Hawk's address.
Which is crazy.
It seems like it would be easy to figure out, but you got to wreck when you wreck in the middle of the night because you're kind of clandestine. You never know.
Take your equipment in the middle of the night to this fancy neighborhood, wake everybody up, and knock down this fancy house.
Another excellent scene here. Hawk can't sleep. He calls his doctor, who encourages him to count sheep.
Liam Dunn.
Yeah, Liam Dunn. Yeah, Mr. Hilltop.
Yeah.
Reverend
Johnson from Blazing Saddles. Young.
And he also was Dr. Morgan in Gus.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
I wonder if he was Dr. Morgan here. I wonder if he was playing the same character.
So we've had some ridiculous scenes to this point, but I really think this Alonzo Hawk dream sequence takes the cake for the whole movie.
Gosh. It is terrifying.
It is wild. So first, there are indeed sheep, but they begin to have the number 53 on them. They eventually turn into Herbies with mouths and teeth. Why? It's horrifying.
Angry eyes.
There's also like
Angry eyes.
the filter on the camera that's kind of the dreamy, cloudy filter. So it's all like really dark and cloudy and the angry-eyed Herbies with mouths and teeth.
And there's dogs crying.
Yes,
Like,
dogs whining. Yes.
Whining hounds out on the moors. It's very unsettling.
Then in a very unfortunate turn, they turn into American Indians with Hawk tied to a stake. The sound of beating drums. They have headdresses on and tomahawks. They proceed to throw the tomahawks and scalp Hawk.
But they do it half. First they take the
Yes.
front half or the left half, then they take the right half. But what was the filming like of this? To have, because the Indian Herbies are like standing on 2 feet, and like there are like 6
They
of
must
them
have been
dancing.
using those miniatures again. I would
Yeah,
think.
those miniatures.
Yeah, but still, they have like a big marionette rig of like Indian Herbies dancing. Crazy.
Oh, and last but not least, we have Hawk on the top of the Empire State Building, swatting away Herbies. And the Herbie sound effect going.
At least they got to get in that oil spray. They held it onto it this long.
yeah.
They get it in there.
Yep. That was a fixture in Herbie the Love Bug. But man, here it is again. So
Oh, man.
Gosh, that is rough.
I had forgotten about the Indian Herbies and the King Kong Herbies.
Me
I
too.
had completely forgotten about that.
Hawk wakes up to a phone call from Lutz Garden, who asks him if he's sure that this address is the right one for the demolition. Gives Hawk the address. Hawk says, "Sure, I know as well as my own address." Yoinks! It is his address. And you see the wrecking ball slam into Hawk's house, and Hawk slides down into the yard in his pajamas and proceeds to chase Lutz Garden down the street into the horizon.
Really felt like he was going to drop some swears here. Like
Yeah, he was pushing his buttons hard.
Yeah. If only it had made it to the 80s. It had the swears in it. The next day, newspapers announced that Hawk has surrendered. He places a call to Mrs. Steinmetz, says he admires her spunk, but he realizes because his house got wrecked last night, he can't go around tearing down all the old buildings in San Francisco. He seems a changed man with a gentle tone, guys.
the underlying theme of San Francisco preservation runs through this movie.
There's a lot of San Francisco plot lines, yeah. Later, Willoughby and Nicole are back at the restaurant. They are waiting for Mrs. Steinmetz, and she is not coming. Turns out she is at the firehouse. Oh, sorry. I missed one thing. After he hangs up, his lawyers praise him for doing the right thing. Hawk says, "It's an old gag. We're still going for the grandmother. Right for the jugular."
And then grabs the guy's neck.
That's right.
Right for the jugular, baby. Right for the jugular. Then he had another line before that. It was like, what are you talking about, fathead?
So later, Willoughby and Nicole are back at the restaurant. They are waiting for Miss Steinmetz, and she is not coming. Turns out she is at the firehouse having a date with Judson from the trolley.
I couldn't believe this.
How did she set that up?
How'd she find him?
And why? Yeah.
I'll find that nice drunk old man.
Right. Oh, well, Hawk is back at it, and we see some heavy machinery at work around the firehouse, shaking it to its very foundation. Even the portrait of the captain falls, and boy, Mrs. Steinmetz, we finally see some emotion from her. She begins to weep.
Finally broke her.
That's right. They go outside, see a crew of bulldozers and wreckers led by Mr. Hawk. Herbie heads out for help.
Mr. Hawk's chauffeur driving the Willie's Jeep.
Yeah, they've got like the Jeep out front.
Oh, it's great. And he's wearing like the coveralls. He's wearing like the Thorndike coveralls, but they have the H.
They've got that. I love that
That's
H
right,
logo.
yeah.
I want something with that H logo on it. And a reminder, this is all completely illegal.
All right. Well, you can't rebuild the old firehouse once it's gone.
Once it's gone. Better to ask forgiveness than ask permission.
That's right. So Hawk gives them 10 minutes to leave, which cracks me up because it's like, well, I mean, just leave now or give them like an hour. 10 minutes isn't going to make any difference. Laughingly, Judson says, "She's under my personal protection." That's probably not going to work. Back at the restaurant, Willoughby is struggling to express his affection. And man, the Willoughby monologues are getting really worn thin at this point. I'll tell you what.
What's it like? This one's like about a relative or something that went over Niagara Falls.
Falls in a barrel.
Yes.
And they never heard from him again. But
Why would you even tell
the Whitfields are not, they are like rabbits, but then they seek adventure.
Gosh. Luckily, Herbie shows up honking, so they must get in Herbie and see what's happening. Herbie on the way out honks at another beetle. They follow in suit. And we get a montage of a lot of beetles following Herbie.
Let me tell you,
I didn't like
as
this.
a kid, I thought the Army of Herbies was awesome. I thought that was so cool. It was like Helm's Deep in Lord of the Rings. Like the army showing up. It was so awesome.
Look to the east.
Oh.
Come back
got
to you
the,
now at the
yeah.
turning of the tide.
You've got all kinds of beetles following. You got the little junkyard yellow beetle that can barely run.
Love that guy.
And the best is you have a painted up beetle with a couple necking in the back at a drive-in movie. and they are like a still shot of them with like the blue screen going on behind. It's
Yes.
such a weird choice.
It's really
The
it's
freeze frame
bizarre.
makeout people at the drive-in, so good. And throughout this
guess-
whole thing, it keeps cutting back to them just being freeze framed.
I guess if you're going to need a army of VWs, San Francisco is the place to go for it.
Oh, for sure.
They should have thrown in some buses as well, some VW buses.
That would have been a good idea. Yeah.
I didn't like this though. I thought this gag cheapens Herbie because I think Herbie is unique, and that's what makes him unique is because he's self-aware, but so by having a bunch of them, I found it cheapened.
You know what? I thought as I was watching it this time, I thought the same thing, and thought like if I was watching as a kid, I thought it was amazing, but like watching it today, I kind of I agree with you, especially considering like in the previous movie, like other cars were just cars. Otherwise, then Herbie was like a murderer because he did kill that other car. So if it was like a person car, then that is really rough. If it's just a car, who cares, So, I kind of agree with you on that one.
Back at the firehouse, we're down to 1 minute.
Did you notice every time they cut to the firehouse, they sound the foghorn off in the distance?
I did not notice that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did it 3 times. Like every time they cut, right as they cut to the scene of the fire.
Maybe it was Willoughby.
Just
So we're down to 1 minute, and Judson and Steinmetz have decided to stand pat. The captain would like that. Judson kind of sacrilegiously dons the captain's old fire hat, I would say.
She pro offers it.
Okay. He proceeds to shoot someone on a bulldozer with a fire hose, which I loved, and proceeds to make his way through the construction crew until a bubble in the hose bursts and destroys the hose. Not to worry, the cavalry of the Beatles has arrived, and here they come by the score, chasing off the construction crew. Finally, they pin in Alonzo Hawk, who gets caught and eventually flipped by a bulldozer who he talks back to.
I wondered why all the guys in like the heavy machinery were afraid of the Volkswagens.
That's good.
Why are you afraid of them? Maybe it's because, did you hear that as they were coming like in the big herd, they added like tiger sound Foley? Like that Disney cat, wow, wow, wow. For some reason.
And then now they're chasing Hawk through a vacant lot. Herbie won't stop until Willoughby says he won't be able to come to the wedding, which gets him to stop. Wedding? Mm-hmm. Hawk runs into a police car and runs it off the road, leading him to get arrested. And we cut to Willoughby and Nicole's wedding. Like we said, it happens fast, which is attended by a bunch of other Beatles who form a tunnel to drive out of the fire station through.
Which was the shot they always used in promos. I hope theirs worked out better than Jim and Carol's, I guess. I hope.
Yeah. Well, we'll never know because they never talk about it again. But that is Herbie Rides Again.
So I've this movie for me. Alonzo Hawk makes this movie for me.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, no doubt.
And so I had to go and look up Keenan Wynn. And did you guys know that he was Chester Copperpot in Goonies? The picture that they show of Chester Copperpot, the old man,
Oh, no.
that's Keenan
Oh,
Wynn.
weird.
Uncredited, but yeah.
Where'd you
That
find
is him.
that?
IMDb, man.
That's a great name for
That
a
is
character
a
he would
good
play.
Keenan Wynn character name, yeah.
It's just the picture. I mean, it has the beard and everything. But yeah, that was Keenan Wynn.
Weird.
Wow. Yeah.
Let's rate this, I guess. If we
Go
must,
for
we
it.
must. Yeah. What are we what's our scale, Robert?
Our scale tonight is a theme, a tool, instrument used throughout this movie, and we're going to go with wrecking balls.
Ah, that's very apropos. So, out of 5 wrecking balls, Robert, what do you give the plot and writing of Herbie Rides Again?
I'm going to have to go with a 2 on this one. Yeah, there's not a lot going on as far as the plot and the writings. They're hanging on to Herbie, and it's just gag city. So 2 for me.
Okay, Andy.
I think it's barely a 2. It really needs to be closer to 1, but I'm going to give it a 2. 2 wrecking balls.
Michael.
It's hard for me because of the Hawk stuff. I want to give it higher because, like, obviously for like 30 years I've remembered every Hawk line, so it's hard to like diss that.
Yeah.
I'll give it a 3. It's a low 3, but it's the Hawk bump.
I think I'll go back down to 2. You know, when it started, I was like, well, this is kind of clever way of getting out of just having another racing movie. Like, you have a heavy guy who's Herbie's trying to stop, and then, you know, as it unwinded, I realized I was nostalgic for most of it. I was like, I can't believe that this goes on the way it goes on. Yeah, it could have been an interesting movie, I think.
Yeah.
But
Well, you know what would have been really interesting is to stick with the original characters, and you know
that's true.
Yes.
That's really
true.
brings it down for me. I was like, well, this is just dumb. I said, it just feels like a filler. I just don't understand.
Well, let's move on to casting and acting, and we will go back to you, Andy. How many wrecking balls do you give that?
I want, based off of Hulk alone, I want to give it a 5. But I'm going to go back. I mean, I don't think it was poorly cast. I thought the cast was pretty good. So I'm going to give it a 4 so a 3 for everybody else. And then Hawk knocks up to a 5. So I'm going to stick with a 4, 4 wrecking balls.
Okay, we'll go to Michael next.
You know, I had to overcome the fact that, like, in my youth, I always viewed Kim Barry as the inferior replacement for someone cooler. Like, in my mind, that's just who he was because of Andy Griffith and then this. But I mean, he does what he's like. I mean, he is that character that he is supposed to play. And I'll go along with Andy. I mean, the Hulk will push me up to a 4 for that.
I'm going to agree with that. And because you got Helen Hayes in there who, you know, her character was insane, but her acting I thought was really interesting. And, you know, she is a legend.
She is like not a Disney legend, but a legend.
A real legend. So Hawk and her get up to a 4 for me. Robert?
Casting and acting, I'm going to go with a 3. Simply because of Hawk. Because I think he carries the entire movie.
Absolutely.
For me. So and that's going to bump it up to a 3 off of a 2.
All right. And we'll stick with you, Robert, with production value. How many wrecking balls are you giving this one?
It's okay. I mean, I think some of the green screen stuff was bad. Some of the miniature stuff was bad. I'm going to go ahead and stick with a 3 on the production value. I think the miniature stuff kind of kills it for me.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, I'll give it a 3 too. It definitely doesn't have the scope of the first one for sure.
I will stick with the 3 as well. I think, you got to give Hawk's office some credit because
True.
glorious, but everything else, yeah, I agree. What's been said. And Andy?
I'm going to go a little less than you guys. I'm going to go with a 2. I thought they did a pretty crappy job with most of it, especially compared to what they did in the first film. So, yeah.
I could see that for sure. All right. We will stay with you, Andy, for entertainment value. How many wrecking balls are you giving this one?
This was a dumb movie. Herbie was really wasted. I'm going to give it a 2. I mean, there was, and I think I want to give it could have been a 1, but Hawk is just so, I don't know. I think Hawk may bump it up to a 3 for me, but I'm going to stick with a 2. Two wrecking balls because just Hawk's just so good. And that's just what I enjoyed.
Really great. Robert, what do you give it?
I'm gonna go with Andy on this one. It's a 2. I'm on the fence. I mean, I've mentioned this before. If I look at my watch, that's a dead giveaway that I'm miserable watching a movie. And I never looked at my watch during this, but I think overall, I'm going to stay with the 2 as well.
I'm going to bump it up to a 3. My nostalgia for it is too great. And the moments, I feel like there are a few moments that bail it out there are moments where it shows that it can be a lot better movie than it ended up being. I think, again, you've got a lot of raw material there that you're just screwing up. But so I'll say 3. And Michael?
I'll agree with all that. A 3. I mean, it's entertaining even when ridiculous. And I mean, there's just too much nostalgia in there. And there's Alonzo Hawk. So that's enough for a 3 for me.
All right, well, let's punch it into our computer that wore tennis shoes. Robert, what do we give Herbie Rides Again?
Herbie Rides Again comes in at a 2.81, which is going to place it as number 10 overall out of the movies we have rated 15, 10 out of 15.
Okay, so we are lower.
Just above, with 1/100th of a point above Freaky Friday.
Yeah, come on, man. I love Freaky Friday.
But a distant, jumps up to a 3.31 for Splash is next in line at 9.
What an interesting pairing to be.
The first time in history those two have probably been ranked against each other in any way whatsoever.
Right. All right, well, we've ranked it and said what we had to say about it. Michael, what did Leonard Maltin have to say about this movie?
Leonard Maltin gave it 2.5 stars. And just a pretty basic review. Called it an okay sequel and typical Disney slapstick. So, darning with faint praise, Leonard Maltin.
Sounds like he's giving it a low 3 too. So
yeah, pretty much.
All right, so before we leave Herbie Rides Again, I have a story treatment for you all for the Herbie Cinematic Universe here. See what you all think. Ned Brainerd has sold, his flubber to the national government, or he's licensed it to the national government. He's made tons of money. He's run Alonzo Hawk into ruin. He decides, he's so famous, he decides to get out of Medfield. And he moves to be a professor at Stanford University to work with his new inventions. During which time, Alonzo Hawk tracks him down in San Francisco, sets up shop there, and Brainerd, wanting to kind of get away from the Hawk thing, decides to put all of his flubber that he has into a Volkswagen he finds that he never sees again.
And it just goes off into the night.
Yeah.
And he never sees it. No, doesn't know what happened to it.
What do you think about that?
Flubber. Man, it's all connected. It works for me, man.
You had me at Hawk.
Hawk and Brainerd facing off again.
I mean, imagine a transcontinental Hawk chase down of where Brainerd is. That's good stuff.
Good stuff. Cross country.
Like a Smokey and the Bandit kind of thing. That'd be awesome.
Right.
Now that's a movie. There's another movie.
Smokey and the Bandit kind of themed Herbie movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gonna do what they say can't be done.
I want somebody else to come up with one for the next one.
Hawk Industries sponsors a transcontinental race for some
All right,
reason.
I'm gonna work on this one. I'll cook up something here.
And there's a lot of opportunities in the next movie. So
it could be like, the universities, research universities are always doing those like X car challenges to have a car that runs on whatever, solar power car to do a race somewhere.
That's true.
And the Medfield entry could be, say Dexter Riley's got an old beat up VW, takes it to Professor Brainerd. Professor Brainerd soups it up with some flubber, and that's their entry in the cross country race.
That's even better.
They get a down on their luck racer named Jim Douglas to do it.
That's right.
I got it. Herbie is parked outside a science building at one of the colleges there and gets zapped and gets put turns digital and he's in the same world as Tron. And instead of racing light cycles, they're racing Herbie.
It's like Forza, but Herbie's
love this.
suddenly in Forza or something. Yeah.
I love this. All right.
Oh man.
I'm going to say I want Tommy Kirk in this. He's,
Naturally.
Yeah, he's taking over the family business in some
Oh, so
fashion.
not driving
That's
Herbie,
how I
but
think.
Bifford.
he's
Bifford.
the
Bifford.
antagonist.
Yeah, Bifford. Yeah, it's going to be back, and he's trying to, him and his father he's trying to take over the business, and I'm trying. I'm still fleshing it out in my mind right now, but I definitely want Bifford and Hawk together again.
What if Bifford's back in Hawk City, Missouri? I don't know. Yeah.
He may have gone home.
And working with Herbie, and Herbie comes into the scenario somehow. Maybe Bifford's running for president. And
I like it.
Senator of Missouri.
Yeah, senators. Yeah, that's
and then Herbie runs for for office as well or something ridiculous.
Herbie runs for office.
Herbie runs again.
Herbie goes to Washington. It's Herbie runs again.
Herbie runs again. That's great.
So we are halfway through the original series, which means we are heading to the French Riviera next. Jeff, would you be so kind as to introduce the third movie in our series?
Well, I would like to politely defer to my good brother, as this was his vehicle of the Herbie franchise, if he'd like to introduce it.
Oh, well, we will be taking a romantic trip across the French countryside with Herbie in the Trans-France race in Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. I'm very excited.
I gotta think this one's gonna get Andy in the right place.
This one's gonna perk Andy's interest
for a major reason.
for a
Yeah.
big reason.
Well, yeah. I mean, I like movies that take place in Europe. I mean, like Jason Bourne. When he was in USA, that was boring. But when he was in Europe, that's when those Bourne movies were really good. So I'm thinking it's going to be very much like that. It's kind of like Madagascar 3 when they go to Monte Carlo. That's like some of the best stuff in the whole series. So
What about when Cars went to Europe?
Nope.
Car series.
Nope.
Well, it's not as
Cars
racist
2,
as
come on.
that. So
Right. But we are back to racing, so that's good.
yeah. I'm real excited for this cast.
Our wonderful graphic designer is busy getting season 2 artwork to us. I'll add that Todd has made the bold statement saying that the third installment of Herbie is the strongest by far. Why don't you make a bold statement with your graphic needs and hire Todd Naprick? He's good at making bold statements about movie franchises and bold statements with his design work. Let Todd at bindandgraphics.com, that's BYDAND graphics.com, make your graphics look good. That's what he does, and he might even toss in some film critiques for free. So from all of us to all of you, take care, and we will see you in the south of France.
Proud are we of mighty Redfield, alma mater dear. All your sons and daughters hail to thee, Redfield College of Technology. And while we hold your banner high, rock, rock, we shout your praises to the sky, rock, rock. For proud are we of mighty Redfield, loyal